Greetings IB artists, this is Miss A. Today I'm going to talk to you about applying to colleges and universities and all those wonderful art institutions that are all over the world. So one of the things that I think it's really important to emphasize, and I've already done this in the shorts, is to do your research, and this is doubly important for international students. For example, have you been surprised that someone in your class who has done basically nothing in IB Art for 2 years has now been accepted by a top art university? Have you? Because this happens all the time, and the reason this happens is because ultimately art institutions are a business. So this is important to remember. They are happy to take your money, and they are happy for you to join their university or college, and then if you can't keep up, they will eventually kick you out. And this is not to paint a dark picture of our institutions. I'm a firm believer of education in general, so I'm not saying that they're these sinister institutions. It's not about that, but you also have to remember, like I said, they are a business. So getting in is the first step, especially for international students. You are paying a lot of money, and a lot of institutions are happy to take it. So just make sure that you understand that getting into university is not necessarily the same everywhere. Of course it isn't. There are major differences from college to college, but it's really important that you understand that staying there and being ready to learn at that level because you've done the work and you are mature enough to be self-disciplined, etc., are sometimes two different things. So a lot of students who really haven't done that well in IB Art will get in initially, but then won't be able to keep up. So make sure that you understand this, that it's not all about marks, it's not all about what you scored in IB Art, but that is some sort of an indicator of how well you'll do in art institution at undergraduate level. Again, I'm going to come back to doing your research. Ideally, if you can visit the college, then do it, because you get to see not only what's on paper or their website, the reputation or the opinions of people, you get to see and experience the vibe. It's really important how you feel in that place. From a personal experience, I wasn't the best art student. When I was applying to institutions, I was told that there was no way I could get into certain institutions and that these are the ones that I should look at. And when I went, I really didn't feel comfortable in a lot of them, and it was very clear to me where I wanted to go, and it was just something about the place. I thought, this is my kind of place, these are my kind of people, I would feel very comfortable here and inspired here, more importantly. And in the end I did get in because I worked really hard to get into that place. It motivated me. So the point of the story is that it's really different when you actually physically go and visit a place. So if you can make use of their open days, I strongly recommend it. You will get to meet faculty, you'll see what kind of work they're producing, and just the general atmosphere and interaction between the faculty and the students. So I really highly recommend this. It's a huge investment, so it's important. One of the things that I want to point out is that when you complete your high school and you finish your IB, you're still very, very young, and I would not be surprised at all if you, for example, want to study art but are unsure about what specialization you want to have. So this, I think, actually makes a lot of sense to me. So if you're not really sure whether you want to go into design or whether you would prefer to do 3D work like sculpture, or whether you want to do film, it actually makes sense to me. This was something I had a lot of trouble with as well, and I think a lot of people do, and I think that's actually quite healthy, because at that point your experience of art is quite limited. No matter how fabulous or how limited your school is, it is limited, and you've been exposed to actually very little. So my recommendation is, again, it of course depends on how much time you have and how much it costs and the financial situation, etc. So I'm kind of talking about an ideal case scenario. If you can, I would really apply to somewhere where you're not specializing yet and where you have the opportunity to be exposed to a lot of different disciplines, a lot of different possibilities, and that you have at least a year of experimentation, trying stuff out, so that you really get to see what is it that you actually want to specialize in. So that's highly recommended. For example, universities in the UK, so I'm talking about the UAL, which is the Arts University, which is split up into different colleges, have a foundation course, and that foundation course lasts a year, and on it you really get to try different things. You have access to different experts in their fields. You can ask a lot of questions, you can make the work, you can experience making it, and this really, I think, is so important. So if you can do it, I highly recommend it. The last thing I'm going to say is, for those of you who are quite ambitious, there's kind of like two types of students really. Some that are super focused and very dedicated to their futures as artists, etc. And there are those who are really just kind of cruising along and you know, are hoping for the best. And if you're one of those who is like intensely focused, that's great. It's also great if you're not, because you still have a lot of time ahead of you to figure things out. I'm not somebody who's just super militant about, you know, you scoring the highest possible grades. That's not for me to say. But for those of you who are very ambitious and focused, you know, don't worry about not getting into the best colleges or universities in the world. This phase of your life is a stepping stone to bigger, better things. Don't let it become this life and death drama, because it really is okay. Certainly there are advantages to going to universities or colleges that have a good reputation. That's, you know, great. But even if you end up somewhere where, you know, it's second choice or third choice, that's okay too, because provided that you've done the research, the likelihood of you learning stuff anyway and having a pretty amazing time is quite high. So I'm not saying settle for second best. I'm not saying don't do your best and aim high. Of course you should. It's good for you. It develops those muscles of you being focused and going after what you want. That's great. But also, it's not the end of the world if you don't end up in, I don't know, Harvard or wherever you think you should be. A lot of that is quite silly, really. At the end of the day, it really isn't that important. It's important, but it isn't life or death, okay? So just keep things in perspective. This is really, really important. So just to kind of recap, the most important thing is that you do your research. Watch out for any over-glamorous, over-hyped institutions that may not be 100% legit, that promise you the earth and blah, blah, blah. Make sure that those places are as good as they claim to be. This is especially true if you're applying to smaller private institutions. Make sure you're careful about that. Visit the places that you've applied to in person if possible. If not, interact with faculty, students, alumni that have been to that place, and try to give yourself options in terms of specializing straight away and applying for a degree in something specific, in a specific discipline, because you may not be ready for it. Well, that's it. I hope that's been helpful. Thank you very much for watching. It would be great if you subscribed and liked this video if it was useful. This is Miss A, wishing you all the very best.